The cell phone vibrated for the third time in less than 10 minutes. Robert Mitchell looked at the device impatiently, while trying to pay attention to his 5-year-old daughter who was showing him a recently finished drawing. It was a portrait of the two of them, holding hands in front of their house in Vineyard Hills, the property he had purchased in the countryside, away from the chaos of New York. A refuge that, ironically, he rarely enjoyed. "Just a minute, Princess," he said, answering the call with a contained sigh. Lily, with curly brown hair and almond-shaped eyes she had inherited from her mother, continued holding the colorful paper, while swinging her feet in the air, sitting on a high chair at the kitchen island. The expression of expectation on her face was slowly replaced by disappointment when she realized that, once again, work was stealing her father's attention. "Of course, we can move it up to tomorrow. I'll have my assistant prepare all the documentation today," Robert replied on the phone, making quick notes on his tablet. He stood up and walked to the panoramic window that overlooked the well-maintained garden, the royal palms that marked the property's boundaries, and in the background, the gentle mountains that characterized that privileged region. At 42, Robert had achieved everything he considered essential for success. His construction company, Mitchell Engineering, had contracts in 5 states and was beginning to venture into international projects. The latest one, a residential complex in Spain, would be the passport to the European market. However, for every square foot built in his developments, it seemed that an inch of distance was established between him and his daughter. "Daddy, look, it's us," insisted Lily when he finally hung up. Robert smiled, taking the drawing. "It's beautiful, my love. You really paid attention to the details, huh? You even included Toby." He was referring to the golden Labrador that was sleeping peacefully on the living room rug. "I'll hang it in my office. Do you promise you won't forget like last time?" asked the little girl with wisdom beyond her years. That question hit him like a punch to the stomach. It was true. The last time, he had promised to hang another drawing, but the rush made the paper get forgotten in some folder, between contracts and floor plans. "I promise, Lily." Engineer's word. He made a solemn gesture, kissing his own hand and touching his heart, in a playful routine that always made his daughter laugh. That Sunday morning, Sandra, the housekeeper who came 3 times a week, had prepared a special lunch before leaving, a complete pot roast, Robert's favorite. He had promised himself that this would be a day entirely dedicated to his daughter. No phone calls, no emails, no emergency meetings. Just father and daughter, making up for the time that the busy week had stolen. While they ate, Lily excitedly told him about school, her friends, the new teacher who knew how to tell stories, with different voices for each character. Robert observed her, noticing how fast she was growing, how her gestures and expressions already showed personality. He had missed many moments like this. Since Lily's mother, Diana, had died in an accident 3 years ago, he had become solely responsible for the little one. The guilt of not being as present as he should be constantly haunted him. "Daddy, when are you going to stop traveling so much?" asked Lily, while playing with the last piece of orange on her plate. "It's complicated, sweetie. Daddy needs to work." "But Bia, my friend from school, said her dad works from home. He's on the computer all day, but he's there when she gets home from school." Robert pondered. It was true that many of his colleagues had opted for more flexible work models after the pandemic. He, however, was still on the road, from airport to airport, from construction site to construction site. "Maybe someday, Princess, but now we have a big, very important project. If it works out, I promise we'll take a vacation." "How about Disney?" Lily's eyes momentarily lit up, but soon the brightness faded. "You promised that before." The silence that followed was interrupted by the phone ringing again. Robert saw the name of Paul Myers, his business partner, on the screen. He hesitated for a second, looking at Lily, but ended up answering. "Paul, I'm with Lily right now." "Yes." "I know how important it is." "No, I wasn't aware of that change. I understand." When he hung up, his expression had changed. Lily, accustomed to that look, already knew what would come next. "Sweetie, Daddy needs to make an important call in his office. It'll only take a few minutes, I promise." The few minutes turned into 2 hours. When he finally returned to the living room, he found Lily asleep on the couch with the TV remote still in her hand. He felt a pang of remorse, realizing that another Sunday had been lost amid professional commitments. The next morning, while having coffee, Robert received another decisive call. The European contract had been moved up. He would need to be in Madrid in 3 days and would probably be away for a few weeks. He looked at the calendar on the kitchen wall. Lily's birthday in a month. It would be the first time he would miss the date. "I need to find someone trustworthy to stay with Lily," he muttered to himself, as he typed a message to his secretary, Melissa. 2 hours later, Melissa sent 3 resumes of potential babysitters by email. Robert analyzed them quickly, between one meeting and another. Victoria Adams's caught his attention. 35 years old, experience in childcare, references from well-known families in the area, education degree. She seemed perfect. The interview was scheduled for that same afternoon. Victoria arrived punctually, dressed simply but elegantly, dark hair tied in a discreet bun, thin-framed glasses, serene expression. "Mr. Mitchell, I appreciate the opportunity," she said, with a calm and articulate voice. "I understand the importance of caring for a child, especially in situations where parents need to be absent for professional reasons." Something in the way Victoria spoke conveyed confidence. There was no judgment in her voice when Robert explained about his frequent travels, only professional understanding. "Lily is a special child," explained Robert. "Since she lost her mother, she has moments of introspection. She needs someone who understands this, who knows how to give space when necessary, but also offers security." "I understand perfectly," replied Victoria. "Each child has their own time to process feelings. My approach has always been to respect that time, gradually building trust." The conversation flowed for more than an hour. Robert explained the household routine, Lily's preferences, school schedules, extracurricular activities. Victoria noted everything attentively, asking pertinent questions that demonstrated experience. "When would you need me to start?" she asked. "If possible, tomorrow. I need to travel in 3 days, and I'd like Lily to already be accustomed to your presence." Victoria agreed with a nod. "That's not a problem. I can bring my things tomorrow morning." When Lily returned from school that afternoon, Robert sat her down for a conversation. He explained about the trip, about Victoria, about how important it would be for them to get along. "For how long, Dad?" asked Lily, her small voice revealing insecurity. "A few weeks, Princess, but I'll call every day, I promise. And when I get back, we'll celebrate your birthday with an incredible party." Lily nodded without much enthusiasm. She had been through this before. Robert's promises, however sincere they might be at the moment, were frequently swallowed by the vortex of his professional commitments. The next day, Victoria arrived as agreed. She brought with her a small suitcase and, to Robert's surprise, an illustrated storybook. "It's a gift for Lily," she explained. "I thought it could be a good start for us to get to know each other." The first meeting between the two was better than Robert expected. Victoria didn't try to force a connection, respecting the girl's space. By the end of the day, they were already sitting together on the porch, with Victoria reading the book she had brought, while Lily listened attentively. "Looks like it worked out," thought Robert, observing the scene from the doorway. Perhaps this time he could travel with a slightly clearer conscience. Madrid received Robert with a fine, persistent rain. The grey sky seemed a bad omen, but he, accustomed to ignoring signs that weren't numbers on spreadsheets, went directly from the airport to the temporary office he had rented in the city centre. The executives from the Spanish developer, Tejo Construction, were already waiting for him for the first meeting. "Mr. Mitchell, welcome to Spain," greeted Antonio Ferreira, the group's executive director, with a firm handshake. "We're excited about this partnership." The meeting room had a view of the Manzanares River, a landscape that Robert would have appreciated at another time. That day, however, his mind was divided between the financial projection charts he was analyzing and the image of Lily, timidly waving from the house gate when the company car departed for the airport. "As we agreed, the first phase of the development includes 200 high-end apartments," explained Robert, sliding his finger across the tablet screen where the architectural designs were displayed. "The differential is the sustainable technology integrated from the foundation." The meeting went on for hours. At the end, everyone was satisfied with the proceedings. The contract would be definitively closed the following week, after standard legal adjustments. For Robert, this meant staying in Madrid longer than initially planned. At the hotel, it was already past midnight when he finally managed to make a video call home. Victoria answered with a low voice. "Mr. Mitchell, good evening. Lily has been asleep for several hours," she informed. "The day was peaceful. She did all her school homework and ate well. Can you wake her up? I promised I would call," asked Robert, feeling guilty about the time. Victoria hesitated. "I don't know if that would be appropriate. She had a full day at school and tomorrow she has swimming lessons early." Robert swallowed his frustration. He knew Victoria was right. "All right. Please tell her I called and that I'll try earlier tomorrow." The first week in Spain went by in a succession of meetings, site visits and business dinners. Video calls with Lily were scarce and brief. On Monday of the following week, when he finally managed to talk to his daughter for more than 5 minutes, he noticed something different. "Is everything okay there, Princess?" he asked, observing the girl's less animated countenance. "Yes," replied Lily, looking down. "I just miss you." "I miss you too, sweetie, but I'll be back soon. I got a special present for you." "When, Dad? For my birthday?" Robert hesitated. The contract was getting complicated. The Tejo construction lawyers had found pending issues that needed to be resolved in person. "I'll do my best, Princess." Lily just nodded, accustomed to vague answers. Before she could say anything else, Victoria appeared in the background. "Lily, bath time. You can continue talking to your father afterward." The call ended with promises of new calls. Robert stared at the black screen of his phone, with an uncomfortable feeling growing inside him. Something in Victoria's tone bothered him, but he couldn't define exactly what. Perhaps he was just tired or projecting his own guilt. The days in Madrid turned into weeks. The project proved more complex than anticipated. The land, located in a historic area, required special permits that took time to be approved. Investors were beginning to get impatient. On a particularly tense morning, Robert received a call from Paul, his partner in the US. "We need to talk about the financial situation, Robert," said Paul without beating around the bush. "The investments in Madrid are consuming our cash flow faster than we anticipated. We're about to close the contract, Paul. A matter of days." "I've heard that 2 weeks ago. Meanwhile, suppliers for the projects in the US are putting pressure on us." The conversation ended with Robert's promise to accelerate negotiations at any cost. He felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders increase. It wasn't just the European project at stake, but the stability of the entire company he had built over the years. That night he tried to call Lily, but the call wasn't answered. He tried again an hour later with the same result. On the third attempt, Victoria finally answered. "I'm sorry, Mr. Mitchell. Lily isn't feeling well. She's had a fever since the afternoon. I gave her the fever reducer that you left on the medication list." Robert's heart tightened. "High fever? Have you taken her temperature?" 38.5 degrees, 101.3 degrees in the last measurement. "But she's already taken the medicine and is sleeping now." "You should take her to the hospital," suggested Robert, worried. "If the fever persists or increases, I'll take her immediately," assured Victoria. "I know the pediatrician on duty at Santa Clara Hospital. I've already called him to alert him of the situation." That night, Robert barely slept. He sent messages every hour to Victoria, who responded with reassuring updates. By morning, the fever had subsided. Lily was better, but still unwell. "I want to talk to her," insisted Robert on the video call. "She just fell asleep again," replied Victoria. "The doctor recommended absolute rest. It seems to be just a bad cold, nothing serious." For 2 days, Robert couldn't speak directly with Lily. Victoria always had a justification. The girl was sleeping. She was taking a bath. She was doing an inhalation treatment. Anxiety began to grow, fueled by distance and a feeling of helplessness. On the third night, he finally managed to see his daughter through the camera. Lily looked weak, her eyes without their usual sparkle. "Hi, Princess. How are you feeling?" "Better, Dad," she replied, her voice still weak. "Aunt Victoria is taking care of me." Something in Lily's gaze disturbed him. It wasn't just the fatigue of illness. There was something more, something that his paternal intuition caught even through the digital screen. "Is everything really okay, sweetie? You can tell me anything, you know that." Lily looked briefly to the side, as if checking if she was being watched. "Yes, Dad, everything's fine." Before he could insist, Victoria appeared next to Lily. "I think that's enough for today, Mr. Mitchell. Lily needs to rest." The call ended abruptly. Robert stared at the screen with a growing feeling that something wasn't right. He decided to call Melissa, his secretary in the US. "Melissa, I need you to check something for me discreetly," he asked. "Can you stop by my house tomorrow? Say you need to pick up some documents I forgot in the office. I want you to see how Lily is really doing." "Of course, Robert, I'll go in the morning." The next day, Melissa called as promised. "I went by your house. Victoria received me but wouldn't let me in. She said Lily was sleeping and the house was under quarantine because of the cold. I thought it was strange, but she was quite emphatic. She handed me the documents I asked for right at the door." Robert's unease increased. He decided to call Mrs. Irving, the trusted neighbor, a retired lady who had always been kind to Lily. "Mrs. Irving, sorry to bother you. I wanted to know if you've seen my daughter recently. She's been sick." "Oh, Robert, it's been several days since I've seen the little one. She hasn't even been playing in the garden. Come to think of it, I don't think your babysitter has been going out much either. The house lights are always off at night. I was beginning to think you had gone on a trip." The conversation with Mrs. Irving only intensified his concern. That night, when he managed to speak with Victoria, he was more insistent. "I need to talk to Lily now." "She's finally sleeping peacefully, Mr. Mitchell. The fever returned late this afternoon, but I've got it under control." "Victoria, I'm getting worried. Why are the house lights always off? Why didn't you let my secretary in?" Victoria's countenance subtly changed. "The lights. We're saving energy, as you always recommended. As for your secretary, I'm just following health protocols. Lily is still recovering." "I want to talk to my daughter tomorrow without fail," insisted Robert. "Otherwise, I'll ask someone I trust to go over there." "As you wish," replied Victoria, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Tomorrow at 10 a.m. US time, she'll be waiting for your call." When he hung up, Robert felt divided. On one hand, Victoria's argument seemed reasonable. On the other, a persistent intuition told him something was wrong. He looked at his agenda. There were still at least 2 weeks of negotiations ahead before he could return to the US. That night, he made a decision. He called Paul. "I need you to take over the negotiations here for a week. I'm going back to the US tomorrow." "What? Have you lost your mind? We're at the crucial moment." "It's my daughter, Paul. Something isn't right. I need to check personally." "Robert, I understand your concern, but we have millions at stake. Can't it wait a few more days?" Robert hesitated. Paul's words made sense. The contract was about to be signed. If he abandoned the negotiations at that moment, years of work could be lost. "All right. I'll stay 3 more days until the contract is signed. Then I'll return immediately." He hung up the phone, feeling the weight of the decision. Once again, he was choosing work over his daughter. But this time there was a difference. The sense of urgency was almost palpable. The next morning, as agreed, Victoria answered the video call. Lily appeared on the screen, apparently better. "Hi, Dad," she said with a small smile. "Hi, Princess. How are you feeling?" "I'm better. Aunt Victoria made chicken soup yesterday." The conversation flowed for a few minutes. Lily told him about drawings she had made, about Toby who was sleeping more than usual, about the heavy rain that had fallen the night before. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, except for one thing. Every time Robert asked a more specific question about the household routine, Victoria subtly interfered, or Lily looked to the side before answering. "Sweetie, is everything really okay there? You can tell me anything." Lily hesitated for a moment. Her eyes met her father's through the screen. For a moment, Robert saw something, fear, worry, pass through his daughter's gaze. But before she could answer, the connection dropped abruptly. The days that followed the strange connection drop during the video call were filled with growing anxiety for Robert. He tried to call repeatedly, but Victoria only answered some calls, always with plausible excuses. Internet problems, Lily having tutoring sessions, medical follow-up appointments. The few times he managed to speak with his daughter were brief and superficial conversations, always under the watchful eye of the babysitter. The contract with Tejo Construction was finally signed on a rainy Friday. Robert barely waited for the end of the ceremonial protocol to call the airline and move up his flight back to the US. He managed to get a ticket for Sunday night, which meant he would arrive in Vineyard Hills on Monday morning. "Victoria, I'll be back early Monday," he announced in the last call he made from Madrid. "Can you prepare a special breakfast? I want to surprise Lily." "Of course, Mr. Mitchell," she replied, with a cordiality that sounded artificial. "Lily will be very happy with your return." How is she? Much better. She's back in school and catching up on the missed material. Can I speak with her now? Unfortunately, she's not at home. Her friend Clara is having a birthday party today, and Lily went to it. She should only return in the evening. Robert frowned. He didn't remember any Clara among Lily's friends. Who is this Clara? A new friend from school. They became close during Lily's recovery. Her mother is a math teacher. The explanation seemed reasonable, but something in Victoria's voice continued to bother him. It was as if each answer was rehearsed, calculated not to raise suspicions. But suspicions of what, exactly? Robert couldn't define it. Maybe he was just paranoid, amplifying small oddities due to the distance and the guilt he felt for being away from his daughter for so long. "Please ask Lily to call me when she returns from the party," he requested. "Certainly," replied Victoria. "Have a good trip back." The promised call never came. Robert sent messages, tried to call again, but only managed to speak briefly with Victoria the next day, when he was already at the airport waiting to board. She explained that Lily had returned from the party very tired and fell asleep immediately. In the morning, they had to leave early for a follow-up exam. "It's just a precaution," she assured. "The doctor wants to make sure there are no after-effects from the bad cold." During the long flight from Madrid to New York, Robert alternated between reviewing documents from the new contract and looking at the few recent photos of Lily on his phone. In one of them, taken a few days before his trip, the girl smiled, hugging her dog Toby in the garden of the house. Her eyes radiated the innocence and confidence that only a child who feels secure can express. That image contrasted with the weakened and reticent Lily from the last video calls. The plane landed at JFK with an hour delay due to turbulence. It was already past midnight when Robert finally took a cab to Vineyard Hills. The approximately 1-hour journey on the highway was made in silence, with Robert watching through the window the lights of the cities that lined the way. With each mile traveled, the sense of urgency increased, as if something were calling him home. When the taxi entered the limits of Vineyard Hills, a fine rain began to fall. It was early autumn, and the nights already brought that characteristic coolness of the season. The driver followed the coordinates indicated by Robert until they reached the high-standard gated community where his house was located. When passing through the guard booth, Robert noticed that the night security guard, Mr. Anson, a gentleman in his 60s who had worked there for more than a decade, was not at his usual post. In his place, a young man he had never seen before checked his documents with an unusual formality for that community where everyone knew each other. "Is Mr. Anson off tonight?" asked Robert, while waiting for his documents to be returned. "He doesn't work here anymore, sir," replied the young man. "I started last week." That information added to the growing catalogue of oddities. Mr. Anson was an institution in that community, knew each resident by name, each car, each routine. His sudden departure was, at the very least, unexpected. The taxi traveled the curving streets of the community until stopping in front of number 237, Robert's house. Even under the fine rain, he immediately noticed that something was different. The garden, always impeccably maintained by the gardener who came fortnightly, was visibly neglected. The grass had grown higher than normal, and some of the ornamental plants seemed to have withered. Robert paid the taxi and stood on the sidewalk for a few moments, observing his own house as if seeing it for the first time. The exterior lights, which should turn on automatically with motion sensors, remained off. The doorbell, when he tried to use it, didn't emit any sound. A chill ran down his spine, unrelated to the moisture of the rain that now soaked his expensive suit. He took the keys from his pocket and opened the gate manually, since the electronic system also seemed inoperative. The stone path that led to the main door was partially covered by dry leaves, as if nobody had swept it for days. As he approached the door, Robert realized there was no noise coming from inside the house. No television on, no sound of footsteps, not even the enthusiastic barking of Toby, who would normally be the first to notice his arrival. The silence was absolute and oppressive. He inserted the key in the lock and turned it. The door opened with a light creak, revealing the darkness of the entrance hall. The smell was the first thing he noticed, an odor of a closed house, stuffy, as if the windows hadn't been opened for days. "Victoria?" he called, his voice echoing through the empty house. "Lily?" No response. He felt along the wall for the light switch. When he finally found it, He realized the light didn't turn on. He tried another switch further ahead, with the same result. The electricity seemed to have been cut off. Using the flashlight on his cell phone, Robert advanced through the house. The living room was in order, but there was a thin layer of dust on the furniture. On the coffee table, he found a cup with coffee remains, the liquid already dried, forming a dark crust at the bottom. The kitchen had the same aspect of abandonment. Dishes piled in the sink, some food rotting in the fruit bowl, the refrigerator turned off, exuding an unpleasant odor. Robert's heart accelerated with each new room he investigated. He went up the stairs toward the bedrooms, calling again for Lily and Victoria, his voice now laden with desperation. His daughter's room was empty, the bed unmade, as if it had been left in a hurry. On the nightstand, he found Lily's favorite teddy bear, the one she never left behind, especially when she slept away from home. In the guest room, where Victoria stayed, the drawers were partially open, some clothes still hanging in the wardrobe, as if she had left in a hurry, taking only the essentials. On the bedside table, a notepad with an unfinished shopping list and a book marked on page 47. Robert returned to the hallway, his breathing labored, panic growing with each second. That's when he heard it. A weak noise, rhythmic, coming from downstairs. Something like a small object repeatedly hitting against a metallic surface. He quickly went down the stairs, following the sound to the kitchen. Upon entering, he directed the phone light to the corner where Toby's bowls were kept. And then he saw her. Lily sitting on the cold floor, with tangled hair and dirty face, eating the last grains of dog food. She wasn't crying, just chewing in silence, as if this were an established routine. Robert's world stopped at that instant. The scene before him was so surreal, so distant from everything he imagined possible in his organized and prosperous life, that for a few seconds he was paralyzed, unable to process what his eyes were seeing. "Lily," he finally whispered, his voice breaking. The girl slowly raised her eyes. There was no surprise in her gaze, nor joy at recognizing her father, just a kind of passive resignation, as if his presence there was just another event in a series of events over which she had no control. Robert approached cautiously, like someone fearing to frighten a wild animal. He knelt close to his daughter, setting aside the phone, the light projecting strange shadows on the kitchen walls. "Princess, what happened? Where is Victoria?" Lily didn't answer. She just continued to pick up the grains of food scattered on the floor, mechanically bringing them to her mouth. Her fingers were dirty, her nails encrusted with dirt. The clothes she wore, pajamas that Robert recognized as being from days ago, were stained and exuded an odor of someone who hadn't bathed in a long time. Carefully, Robert extended his hand and touched his daughter's arm. She instinctively flinched, as if expecting a blow. That reaction was like a knife piercing Robert's chest. What had they done to his daughter, for her to react like this to her own father's touch? "It's all okay now, Princess. Daddy's here. Nobody's going to hurt you." Slowly, trying not to make sudden movements, he picked Lily up in his arms. She didn't resist, but she also didn't cuddle as she used to do. She remained inert, like a rag doll, her gaze fixed on a point somewhere beyond her father's shoulder. He carried her to the downstairs bathroom. Using the phone's light, he managed to find candles in a drawer. He lit them and placed them strategically around the bathroom. With the precarious lighting, he began to prepare a bath for Lily. The water came out cold. The heating system was probably also turned off, but it was better than nothing. While the bathtub filled, he tried to talk to his daughter again. "Lily, can you tell me what happened? Where is Victoria? Where is Toby?" For a moment, something seemed to awaken in Lily's eyes at the mention of the dog. A shadow of emotion crossed her face, but quickly disappeared, replaced by the same empty expression as before. "Aunt Victoria left," she finally said, her voice hoarse as if she hadn't spoken for days. "She said she was going to buy food. She never came back." Robert felt a wave of anger course through his body. How could Victoria have abandoned a 5-year-old child alone? For how long had Lily been in that situation? "When did she leave, Princess? Do you remember?" Lily shook her head negatively. "Many sleeps ago. The food ran out, then the light, then the hot water." The way she spoke, fragmented and distant, broke Robert's heart even more. What had his daughter gone through during his absence? And Toby? Where is he? Lily lowered her head. "Toby went to sleep. He didn't wake up anymore. He's in the garden. Robert closed his eyes, understanding the implication of those simple words. The dog had probably died, and Lily somehow had dealt with it alone. He helped his daughter undress and get into the bathtub with cold water. She didn't complain, although she shivered slightly. Carefully, Robert washed her tangled hair and scrubbed the accumulated dirt on her skin. Throughout the process, Lily remained silent, as if she were somewhere else, far from there. After the bath, he dried her and dressed her in clean clothes he found in her room. He took her to the master bedroom, his own, believing she would feel safer there. He carefully laid her down and sat beside her. "I'm going to take care of you now, Princess. I'll never leave you alone again." Lily looked at him for a long moment, as if assessing the truth of that promise. Then, without saying anything, she turned to her side and closed her eyes. In a few minutes, her breathing indicated she had fallen asleep, physically and emotionally exhausted. Robert remained sitting on the edge of the bed, watching his daughter's restless sleep by the flickering candlelight he had brought from the bathroom. His world, previously organized around contracts, deadlines, and numbers, was now reduced to that small, fragile body lying under the sheets. The consequences of his choices, of broken promises, of inverted priorities, now manifested themselves in the cruelest way possible, the abandonment and suffering of his own daughter. When he was sure Lily was sleeping deeply, he left the room and went through the house again, this time with a different purpose. He needed to understand what had happened, gather clues, find explanations. In the office, he found that the safe was open and empty. Important documents, deeds, insurance policies, some bearer bonds had disappeared. In his personal closet, he noticed the absence of some valuable objects: a gold watch inherited from his father, platinum cufflinks, a small collection of rare coins. In the kitchen, he examined the cabinets and pantry. They were practically empty, except for some packages of non-perishable foods that Lily probably couldn't open. Toby's food, apparently, had become her last source of nutrition. On the cell phone he had left at home, he checked the call log. There were several missed calls from unknown numbers and 2 voicemail messages without audible content. The device, old and without an active SIM card, served only as a backup and had probably been used by Lily in desperate attempts to seek help. He returned to the bedroom and sat again beside his sleeping daughter. The initial anger had given way to a deep pain and an overwhelming feeling of guilt. How could he have been so blind? How had he not noticed the signs that something was wrong? "Never again, Princess," he whispered to his daughter, who couldn't hear him. "I'll never abandon you again." That night, sitting in the darkness beside Lily, Robert Mitchell made a silent vow. From that moment on, his life would have only one priority. The rest, contracts, business, money, could wait. Some might even be lost. But his daughter's trust, her safety, this he would fight to regain, no matter how long it took, no matter what he had to sacrifice. Morning arrived with the pale clarity of a cloudy day infiltrating through the curtain gaps. Robert hadn't slept. He spent the night watching over Lily's restless sleep, observing each movement, each sigh, as if fearing that his daughter might disappear if he looked away for even a moment. When Lily finally opened her eyes, there was a moment of confusion in her gaze, followed by a flash of recognition at seeing her father sitting on the edge of the bed. "Good morning, Princess," said Robert, trying to keep his voice steady despite the exhaustion. "Did you sleep well?" Lily nodded silently, her eyes scanning the room as if to confirm she was really there, that it wasn't a dream. She sat up in bed slowly, hugging the teddy bear that Robert had rescued from her room during the night. "I'm hungry," she finally said, her voice still small and hesitant. Those simple words awakened an immediate urgency in Robert. "Of course, let's prepare something for you to eat. Afterward, we need to go to the doctor just to make sure everything's okay." They went down to the kitchen together, Lily clinging to her father's hand as if fearing he might evaporate at any moment. The daylight revealed even more clearly the state of abandonment of the house. Robert opened the windows to dissipate the stale air and smell of mold that had settled in. The refrigerator was empty and unplugged. The cupboards offered little beyond a few cans of tuna and packages of already expired crackers. Robert improvised a breakfast with what he found, promising himself he would go shopping as soon as possible. While Lily ate slowly, sitting at the kitchen table, Robert made some calls. The first was to Paul, his partner. "Robert, we were worried. Why didn't you answer the calls yesterday?" "Paul, I need a few days off. Something happened here at home. What? We're in the middle of negotiations to implement the Spanish project. The investors are pressing for a meeting this week. I'll have to pass that on to you. My daughter, she needs me now. The hesitation on the other end of the line was palpable. Robert, are you okay? Your voice sounds strange. No, Paul, I'm not okay. I'll explain later. For now, take over the meetings. And do me a favor. Check if there have been any strange movements in the company accounts. What kind of movements? Unauthorized transfers, withdrawals, anything suspicious? You're scaring me. Did something happen with the company that I should know about? Just do that, please. I'll call you later. The second call was to Dr. Helen, the pediatrician who had been caring for Lily since she was a baby. Dr. Helen, I need an emergency appointment for Lily today. Mr. Mitchell, what happened? My schedule is full, but I can try to fit her in at the end of the day. I can't wait. It's complicated to explain over the phone. Lily was alone for days. I found her eating dog food. The silence on the other end was followed by a firm response. Come now, I'll cancel my next patient. The third call was to an electrician who could restore the house's power as quickly as possible. The fourth was to a cleaning company. The last was to his lawyer, Dr. Richard. Richard, I need you to check something for me discreetly. The babysitter I hired to care for my daughter, Victoria Adams, I want everything on her. Background, references, complete professional history. Did something happen, Robert? She abandoned my daughter and disappeared with money and documents. I want to know who I really put inside my house. After the calls, Robert turned his attention back to Lily, who had finished eating and was now playing distractedly with the cracker crumbs on the table. Let's take a bath and get ready to go to the doctor, Princess. Lily nodded again, that same silent movement that seemed to have replaced her once animated voice. Robert helped her get ready, noting with concern how she seemed to have lost weight, how her skin was dry, how her movements were slow and calculated, different from the childlike energy she had always shown. While they were getting ready, Robert tried to extract more information about what had happened during his absence. Lily, can you tell me when Victoria left? The girl frowned as if the effort of remembering was painful. I don't know, it was dark. She said she was going to buy food. Did she seem nervous? Did something happen before she left? She was talking on the phone. She was angry, then she cried. Do you know who she was talking to? Lily shook her head. She would lock herself in the room. Sometimes she shouted. And after she left, you were alone the whole time? Nobody came here. A flash of fear crossed Lily's gaze. The man from the gate would come to look. I would hide in the closet. That information made Robert freeze. What man, Lily? Did you know him? No. He would stay outside. He would look through the windows. He would knock on the door. I wouldn't open it. For how long did this happen? Many days. Then he stopped coming. Robert felt a mix of horror and relief. Horror at what his daughter had gone through. Relief that she had the presence of mind not to open the door to a stranger, even in her desperate situation. At Dr. Helen's office, Lily underwent a complete examination. The doctor, a middle-aged woman with decades of experience, maintained a professional demeanor, but Robert could see her growing concern as she examined the girl. Moderate dehydration, mild malnutrition, some scratches on the legs and arms, listed the doctor as she made notes. We'll do blood tests to check for possible nutritional deficiencies. Overall, considering the circumstances, her physical condition is better than I expected. And her psychological state? Asked Robert, keeping his voice low while Lily colored a drawing in the other corner of the room. The doctor sighed. That's more concerning. She's clearly traumatized. She'll need psychological follow-up. I can recommend an excellent child psychologist. What should I expect in the coming days? Nightmares, behavioral regression, excessive attachment, fear of abandonment. She went through an extremely traumatic experience, Robert. Children have an incredible capacity for resilience, but they need consistent support to process this kind of trauma. I'll do whatever is necessary, stated Robert, watching his daughter across the room. Any treatments, therapies, specialists, no matter the cost. The most important thing now is to establish a safe and predictable routine. She needs to know she can count on you, that her basic needs will be met, that she's protected. I won't travel for work anymore, declared Robert firmly. I'm going to completely reorganize my professional life. Dr. Helen nodded, satisfied with the determination she saw in his eyes. It's the right decision. I also need to know, are you going to report the case to the authorities? Robert hesitated. The idea of exposing Lily to police interrogations, of making the situation public, made his stomach turn. On the other hand, Victoria needed to answer for what she had done. I haven't decided yet. First, I want to ensure that Lily is stable, and I need to understand exactly what happened. Back at the house, they found the electrician already working. The power would be restored in a few hours. The cleaning team would arrive the next day. Robert improvised a light lunch with groceries they bought on the way. After the meal, while Lily rested on the couch watching a cartoon on Robert's tablet, the lawyer called. "Robert, I have some preliminary information about Victoria Adams." "I'm listening." "To begin with, her real name is Victoria Santos Adams. She's 37, not 35, as stated in the resume she presented to you. She worked as a babysitter for 3 families in the last 5 years. The references she presented are real but incomplete." "What do you mean?" "She really worked for these families, but omitted an important detail. She was fired from her last position after accusations of petty theft. The family didn't file a formal complaint to avoid scandals, but stopped providing references." "So she has a history of theft?" "Apparently so, although nothing that reached the criminal sphere. There's more. She has a brother with a police record for fraud and association with illegal gambling. Vincent Adams, known in the underworld as Vince the Gambler." Robert felt a chill run down his spine. Lily mentioned a man who would come to observe the house after Victoria disappeared. Could it be her brother? "It's possible. I'll investigate further. I got the address of Victoria's last known residence, a rented apartment in Camden. I'm also checking recent financial movements in her name." "Thank you, Richard. Keep me informed of any developments." When he hung up, Robert noticed that Lily was watching him from the couch, her large brown eyes fixed on him with a disturbing intensity. "Is everything okay, Princess?" he asked, approaching and sitting next to her. "Are you going to find Aunt Victoria?" she asked, her voice low and hesitant. Robert studied his daughter's face, trying to decipher the emotion behind that question. "Probably yes. Why? Do you want to see her again?" Lily looked away, focusing on her own hands that were squeezing the hem of her shirt. "No." She became different. Different how? Sad, then angry, then scared. Robert carefully chose his next words. "Lily, did Victoria hurt you in any way? Did she do something that made you afraid?" The girl shook her head negatively. "She just stopped playing with me. She was always on the phone. She cried a lot. Then she left and didn't come back." "And the man who would come to look through the window, did you see him clearly? Can you describe him?" "He was big. He had a beard. He talked loudly." "Did he say anything you heard?" Lily frowned, concentrating. "He would shout Aunt Victoria's name. He said she needed to pay. That she had promised." That information confirmed Robert's suspicion. It was probably Victoria's brother collecting some kind of debt. But why would she abandon a child to flee from a debt? Why not simply ask for help? In the hours that followed, as the house slowly returned to normalcy with the return of electricity and the arrival of supplies that Robert ordered by phone, he continued to piece together fragments of the story. In the office, he carefully examined the bank statements from the last few weeks. He discovered a series of withdrawals and transfers made in his name to unknown accounts. The pattern began subtly, with small amounts, then evolved to more significant values. The last withdrawal of almost $20,000 had been made 3 days before his return. On the cell phone he had left at home, he managed to recover a partial call history. There were several attempts to contact his main number, the one that led to Madrid. The calls never completed, probably because Lily didn't know how to make international calls. There were also attempts to emergency numbers, but with no record of completion. The prepaid SIM card had expired due to lack of recharge. The most disturbing discovery came when he examined the house's security system. The cameras had been turned off weeks before, but one of them at the main entrance had been reactivated 2 days before his return. Someone, probably Victoria, had briefly returned to the house. The images showed a woman entering quickly, staying for less than 10 minutes and leaving carrying a small suitcase. In Victoria's room he found few remaining belongings. Some basic clothes, cheap hygiene products, self-help books. In a drawer at the bottom of the wardrobe, hidden under some blouses, he discovered a personal diary. The pages contained outpourings about anxiety crises, insomnia, financial worries, and constant fear. One entry, dated approximately 1 month after the start of her work in the house, particularly caught his attention. "I can't take Vincent's calls anymore. The debt only increases. He doesn't understand that I have no way to pay what he lost in gambling. This job was my chance to start over, to stay away from family problems. The girl is a sweetheart. The father seems to be a good person, despite being absent. I'm afraid of what Vincent is capable of doing if he doesn't get the money he demands." Later entries showed a gradual deterioration in Victoria's mental state. "Vincent discovered where I'm working. He threatened to come here. I need to find a quick solution. I borrowed from the money that Mr. Mitchell left for household expenses. I'll replace it as soon as I receive my salary. The situation is unsustainable. Vincent increased the debt, says the interest continues to accrue. The salary money is not enough." The last entry, written in shaky handwriting, seemed to have been made in haste. "I'm not evil, I'm broken, I had no choice, I need to flee. I hope someday they can forgive me." Robert closed the diary, feeling a mix of anger and pity. Victoria had clearly succumbed to pressure. She probably started with small diversions of money, evolving to more significant theft when the situation became desperate. But abandoning a child, leaving her to fend for herself, this he couldn't understand or forgive. He returned to the living room, where Lily had fallen asleep on the couch. Gently, he picked her up and carried her to the bedroom. As he covered her, he silently promised that he would do everything in his power to ensure she never went through something similar again. In his daughter's room, he observed more carefully the drawings pinned on the walls. Many showed her and her father together. Some included Victoria, others portrayed Toby, but one drawing in particular caught his attention. 3 stick figures, a small one representing Lily, a larger one that would be himself, and a third, a bearded man with a big threatening smile. Below the bearded figure, written in childish handwriting, was the phrase, "He said he would take me to a place where children never feel hungry." A chill ran down Robert's spine. Had that man, probably Vincent, Victoria's brother, spoken directly to his daughter? Had he threatened to take her? The idea was so disturbing that he felt nauseous. His cell phone rang, interrupting those dark thoughts. It was Paul again. "Robert, I checked the accounts as you asked. I found something strange. There was an attempt to access our corporate banking system using your credentials, but from an unrecognized device. The system automatically blocked it." "When was this?" 3 days ago. They tried again the next day, without success. After that, there were no more attempts. "Thank God for the security system," muttered Robert. "Paul, I need you to temporarily freeze my accesses and change all passwords. I also want you to issue an alert to the banks about possible fraud attempts using my personal documents." "Robert, what's going on? Were you robbed?" "Yes, Paul, I was robbed in many ways, and I almost lost what I value most." The following days brought a new routine to the Mitchell house. The cleaning team had restored order and hygiene to the environment. The lights were working again. The refrigerator was stocked, the garden trimmed. Superficially, everything seemed to have returned to normal, but the invisible scars, those that couldn't be erased with cleaning products or electrical repairs, remained. Robert woke up every day before dawn, haunted by nightmares in which he arrived too late, finding only an empty and cold house. He spent these first moments of the day checking if Lily was all right, sleeping peacefully in her room. Then he prepared breakfast, something he had never done regularly. The first attempts were disastrous. Burned pancakes, eggs raw inside and toasted outside, coffee too strong. But with time and some internet searches, he improved. "Did you like the pancakes today, Princess?" he asked on a sunny morning, about 2 weeks after his return. Lily nodded timidly, a small smile forming at the corner of her lips. "They're better than yesterday's." That comment, however simple it might be, filled Robert's heart with hope. It was the first time Lily had offered a spontaneous opinion without being directly questioned. A small step, but significant. The previous day had been intense. Finally, after much hesitation, Robert decided to file a police report against Victoria. Detective Morris, a middle-aged man with tired eyes that seemed to have seen everything, listened to his account with professional attention. "Child abandonment, theft, embezzlement," listed the detective as he took notes. We'll issue a search and arrest warrant for Victoria Adams. Do you have recent photos of her? Robert provided what he had, a photo from the day of hiring and some images captured by the security cameras before they were deactivated. And the child? Asked the detective. We'll have to hear her testimony at some point. Robert felt his stomach contract. She's traumatized. The psychologist recommended avoiding having her relive the experience unnecessarily. I understand your concern, Mr. Mitchell. We have a psychologist specialized in listening to children who are victims of trauma. When your daughter is more stable, we can schedule a testimony with all the necessary safeguards. Robert reluctantly agreed. He knew it was necessary, but the idea of Lily having to remember those days of abandonment deeply disturbed him. The investigation advanced slowly. Victoria had completely disappeared. The apartment in Camden was empty, with several months of rent in arrears. Her cell phone was turned off, the bank accounts emptied. It was as if she had been swallowed by the earth. The lawyer Richard, however, got more information about Vincent, the brother. He has connections to illegal gambling houses in Camden and the region, explained Richard in a call. Apparently, he accumulated significant debts with loan sharks in recent months. This would explain the pressure on Victoria. And where is he now? Nobody knows for sure. There are rumors that he fled to Paraguay after a disagreement with creditors. Do you think Victoria might have gone with him? It's a possibility. I'm in contact with some private investigators who have sources at the border. If she tried to leave the country, we can find out. While the investigations followed their course, Robert focused on what he considered most important: Lily's recovery. Following the recommendations of Dr. Helen and the child psychologist Dr. Camilla, he established a structured and predictable routine. Every day, he personally took and picked up Lily from school. He had meals with her, helped with homework, participated in playtime. At night, he read stories until she fell asleep. On weekends, he planned special activities: cinema, park, picnics in the garden. At first, Lily was reserved, almost afraid to become attached again. She woke up several times during the night calling for him, as if she needed to confirm he was still there. She had episodes of crying, apparently without reason, followed by long periods of silence. On some mornings, Robert found her sleeping on the floor next to the bed, with food hidden under the pillow. Behaviors that Dr. Camilla explained were common in children who had gone through deprivation and abandonment. She's testing reality, explained the psychologist during a private session with Robert. She needs to be sure that her basic needs will be met, that she won't be alone again. These are survival mechanisms she developed during the trauma. How long will it take until she feels safe again? Asked Robert, his voice choked with contained emotion. Each child has their own time, Robert. The important thing is that you're doing everything right. Consistency is fundamental. Continue showing her day after day that she can trust you, that she is safe. The therapy sessions with Lily seemed to be helping. After each meeting with Dr. Camilla, the girl returned a little more open, a little more willing to talk about her feelings. She used drawings to express what she still couldn't completely verbalize, images that were gradually changing from dark tones and hidden figures to more vivid colors and open spaces. At home, Robert made drastic changes. He transformed the office, previously an untouchable sanctuary of work, into a shared space where Lily could draw and play while he took care of unavoidable professional matters. He placed her drawings in frames, proudly displaying them on the walls. Together they painted her room with colors chosen by Lily herself, a soft yellow on the walls and green details that resembled an enchanted forest. There were also profound changes in his professional life. In a tense meeting with Paul and the other partners of the construction company, Robert exposed his new reality. "I can't travel like before," he declared firmly. "My daughter needs me. We need to restructure the company so that I can work predominantly from Vineyard Hills." "That's unfeasible, Robert," argued Charles Myers, the oldest partner. "You're the face of the company. Clients expect to see you personally, especially the international ones." "Then we'll have to rethink our strategy," replied Robert, unyielding. "I can do video conferences. I can receive clients here. I can travel occasionally for very short periods when absolutely necessary. But I will not be away from home for weeks anymore." The discussion was long and sometimes heated. In the end, they reached a compromise. Paul would take on more responsibilities with international clients, While Robert would focus on strategic management and national clients, the company would hire a new operations director to free Robert from some day-to-day functions. It wasn't the ideal solution from a business standpoint, but it was the only one Robert would accept. "You don't understand," he said at the end of the meeting, when the others were already preparing to leave. "I almost lost my daughter because of this job. I'm not speaking figuratively. She could have died alone in that house, abandoned while I was signing contracts on the other side of the ocean. No business is worth that price." The silence that followed was profound. Paul, who had known Robert for more than 15 years, had never seen him so shaken and at the same time so determined. "We'll make it work," he finally said, placing his hand on his friend's shoulder. "Your daughter is more important than any contract." At the end of that afternoon, when he went to pick up Lily from school, Robert was surprised by an unexpected invitation. Luciana Fontaine, the principal, asked for a few minutes of his attention while Lily finished an activity in the library. "Mr. Mitchell, we're organizing a special project for the third-grade children, a basic woodworking workshop where they'll learn to build small objects. We need parent volunteers to help." Robert hesitated. His immediate instinct was to explain that he didn't have time, that the company demanded his attention, that perhaps he could make a monetary donation instead of participating personally. But then he remembered the promise he had made to himself. "When do the workshops start?" "Next week. It would be 2 hours, once a week, for a month." "Count me in," he replied, without further hesitation. The smile of surprise and approval on the principal's face confirmed that he had made the right decision. When Lily came out of the library and saw her father chatting animatedly with the principal, her curious look showed a flash of that vivacious girl she used to be. "What were you talking about?" she asked as they walked to the car. "It's a surprise," replied Robert, smiling, "but I think you'll like it." In the days that followed, Robert found himself absorbed in a completely different routine than the one he had maintained for years. Mornings no longer began with international conference calls, but with preparing breakfast and carefully choosing Lily's clothes for school. Afternoons were no longer filled with endless meetings, but with homework, playing in the garden, and trips to the market. Curiously, he felt more fulfilled in this new routine than he had ever felt closing the biggest contracts of his career. There was a deep satisfaction in seeing Lily's smile when she solved a math problem with his help, or when they managed to prepare a cake together without culinary disasters. The first session of the woodworking workshop was a decisive moment. Robert, who had always delegated manual work, suddenly found himself teaching 8-year-olds how to hold a hammer correctly and to measure twice before cutting. The classroom, transformed into a workshop, was filled with laughter, exclamations of surprise, and occasionally screams of frustration when something didn't go as planned. Lily, initially shy among her classmates, gradually became animated at seeing her father demonstrating how to sand wood until it was as smooth as silk. When she managed to hammer her first nail without bending it, she looked at Robert with such genuine pride that he felt his eyes water. "Did you see, Dad? I did it. I saw, Princess. You have talent for this." On the way back home, Lily talked more than on any other day since the incident. She told about the projects she wanted to make, about how Matthew, a classmate, was afraid to use the hammer, about how teacher Denise had praised everyone's teamwork. That night, when he put her to bed, Robert noticed a new drawing on the bedside table. It showed him and Lily building something together, both smiling, with colorful tools in their hands. At the top of the page, in careful letters, was written, "Me and Daddy building new things." "It's beautiful, Lily," he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Can I hang it in my room?" She nodded, her eyes already heavy with sleep. "Daddy, will you be here tomorrow too?" The question, seemingly simple, carried the weight of all the broken promises of the past. Robert felt a lump in his throat. "Yes, Princess, I'll be here tomorrow, and after that, and every day." "Promise?" "I promise. Engineer's word." He made the solemn gesture they used to share, kissing his own hand and touching his heart. Lily smiled and closed her eyes. In a few minutes, her breathing indicated she had fallen asleep peacefully, without the startles that had characterized her sleep in previous weeks. Robert remained there for a while, watching his daughter. He thought about how his life had completely changed in such a short time. In the high business circles he frequented, it would be considered a setback, perhaps even a failure. Going from international negotiator to full-time father, exchanging meeting rooms for school woodworking workshops. But sitting there, seeing Lily's serene expression in her sleep, for the first time in years, he felt that he was exactly where he should be, doing exactly what he should do. The real failure would have been to continue on the previous path, losing the precious moments he now valued above any professional achievement. The next morning, he received an unexpected call. It was Detective Morris. "Mr. Mitchell, we found Victoria Adams." Robert felt his heart accelerate. "Where?" "In a roadside motel in El Paso. Apparently she was trying to cross into Mexico. She's already been detained and is being brought in to testify." "And what about the stolen documents and money?" "We found some documents with her, but the money, well, most of it has probably already been spent. She was in precarious conditions when we found her. She seemed ill, disoriented." "When can I speak with her?" "As soon as she arrives at the police station, probably tomorrow afternoon. I'll let you know when everything is ready." Robert hung up the phone with conflicting feelings. Part of him wanted to confront Victoria, demand explanations, express all the accumulated anger for the suffering she had caused Lily. Another part feared what he might discover, the justifications she might offer, the impact this would have on his daughter's recovery process. He decided not to tell Lily about Victoria's capture for now. It was too much information, at a still fragile moment. He would consult Dr. Camila first to determine the best way to approach the subject, if it should be approached at all. That same day, while working in his adapted office, listening to Lily humming while drawing at the small table installed especially for her, Robert received another important piece of news. A message from Richard informed that investigators had also located Vincent Adams, detained for drug trafficking, in a police operation in Ciudad Juarez on the Mexican side of the border. The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fit together. Soon he would have answers to the questions that tormented him, but looking at Lily, he realized that the answers might not be as important as he initially thought. What really mattered was there, in that room, his daughter gradually recovering her joy, confidence, security, and he rediscovering the true meaning of success and fulfillment. "Daddy, look what I drew," called Lily, holding up a new drawing. Robert set aside the emails and reports. That could wait. His daughter couldn't. The waiting room at the police station had walls of a faded beige and uncomfortable plastic chairs. Robert waited, checking his watch every few minutes. Although he had only been there for half an hour, it seemed like an eternity. Across town, Lily was at school, participating in a rehearsal for the end-of-quarter presentation, unaware that her father was about to meet the woman who had abandoned her. "Mr. Mitchell," called Detective Morris, appearing in the hallway. "She's ready to talk." Robert followed the police officer through narrow corridors to a small, austere room. Seated at the table, handcuffed and with a haggard appearance, was Victoria. Her hair, previously impeccably tied in a bun, was disheveled. Deep, dark circles marked her face, and she had visibly lost weight. When she raised her eyes and saw Robert, she quickly lowered her gaze, unable to maintain eye contact. "I'll leave you alone for a few minutes," said the detective. "I'll be right outside if you need me." A heavy silence hung in the room after the detective's departure. Robert observed the woman before him, feeling a mixture of anger, pity, and perplexity. Finally, it was Victoria who broke the silence. "How is Lily?" she asked, her voice almost inaudible. The question ignited a flame of indignation in Robert. "Now you care, after abandoning her to die alone?" Victoria shrank as if she had taken a physical blow. Tears began to stream down her face. "I never wanted, never planned." Her voice failed. She took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. "I know there's no excuse for what I did. I'm not asking for forgiveness." "What happened, Victoria? The truth." She wiped the tears with her handcuffed hands. "My brother, Vincent. He's always had problems with gambling since his teens. Our parents died early, we only had each other. I always ended up paying his debts, cleaning up his messes." Robert remained silent, letting her continue. "When I started working for you, I was trying to start over. I had cut contact with Vincent after our last fight. He had stolen my savings to pay gambling debts. I thought I was finally free." She gave a bitter smile. "But Vincent always finds me. He discovered where I was working, started calling me, threatening me. He said he owed money to dangerous people, that if I didn't help they would kill him." Why didn't you ask for help? Why didn't you tell me? Victoria laughed without humor. Tell what? That my brother is a gambling addict with debts to loan sharks? That I myself had already been fired for theft? I desperately needed this job. So you started stealing from me too? She nodded, ashamed. At first, they were small amounts. I thought I could replace them later, but Vincent's debt only grew. He started showing up at the house, pressuring me. He threatened to tell you everything if I didn't give him more money. Robert remembered the man Lily had mentioned, the one who watched the house from the gate. Did you know he was scaring Lily? Not at first. He would appear when she was at school. But later, yes, I realized Lily had seen him. I tried to keep him away, I swear. Her hands trembled. Things got worse when you extended your trip. Vincent became more aggressive, demanding more money. I started having anxiety attacks, couldn't sleep. That doesn't explain why you abandoned a 5-year-old child. Victoria lowered her head, tears falling freely now. On the last night, Vincent came to the house. He was desperate, said the creditors had given an ultimatum. He wanted me to take everything of value I could and go with him to Mexico. He said he knew people there, that we could start over. And you simply accepted, leaving Lily behind? No, I said no, that I couldn't abandon the child. We had a bad fight. He threatened to come back and take Lily as a guarantee, said we could demand ransom from you. Her voice broke. I was terrified. I left to meet him at a gas station nearby, thinking I could convince him to give up this madness. I took some money and jewelry I found, thinking it would be enough to calm him down. And then, when I got there, Vincent was with 2 more men. They took the money and jewelry, but said it wasn't enough. They wanted me to go back for more. They kept me in a motel room for days. When I finally managed to escape, I tried to return to the house, to see Lily. You came back? Asked Robert, surprised. When? 2 days before you arrived. I couldn't enter through the main door. I used the service entrance with the key I had. I saw Lily sleeping on the couch. She seemed to be okay. I left some food in the kitchen, reactivated one of the security cameras to monitor her remotely. I wanted to stay, I swear I did, but I knew Vincent would find me there. I feared what he might do to Lily if he found us together. Robert processed that information. It explained the reactivated camera, some details that didn't make sense before. But there was still something that didn't fit. If you were so concerned, why didn't you call someone? The police, the neighbors, my secretary? Victoria closed her eyes for a moment. I tried to call your secretary, but she didn't answer. As for the police, Vincent has contacts in the local police. Besides, I would be arrested immediately for the thefts. And who would take care of Lily then? So you ran away? Yes, she admitted, her voice almost a whisper. I was a coward. I ran thinking you would return soon, that Lily would be fine for a few more days. When I discovered your trip had been extended again, I was already too far away to return. Vincent found me at the bus station in Camden, said there were people looking for us. We headed to Pennsylvania, then to the border. What happened to the money and documents you took? Vincent took almost everything, said he needed to pay the creditors. The little that was left, I spent trying to return after we separated. He was arrested in a police operation in Ciudad Juarez. I was trying to cross at another point when they caught me. Robert studied Victoria's face, trying to discern truth from lie in her story. There were inconsistencies, details that didn't fit perfectly, but the desperation in her eyes seemed genuine. Do you know what Lily went through while you were trying to return? I found my daughter eating dog food. She spent days without electricity, without hot water, alone and terrified. She was 5 years old, Victoria. 5 years old. Victoria covered her face with her hands, now openly sobbing. I'll never forgive myself for that. Never. If I could go back. But you can't, completed Robert, standing up. You'll have to live with the consequences of your choices, just as Lily will have to live with the scars of the trauma she suffered. Before leaving, he turned one last time. I'm not the one who decides your legal fate, Victoria. Justice will do that. But I want you to know, the worst punishment you already carry within yourself. He left the room feeling strangely empty. He had hoped that the confrontation with Victoria would bring some kind of relief, perhaps even a sense of justice. Instead, it brought only the understanding of how lives can crumble in a chain, a series of bad decisions leading to devastating consequences. On the way to pick up Lily from school, He reflected on everything Victoria had told him. There was truth in her story, mixed with omissions and possible manipulations. Detective Morris had confirmed some parts. Vincent had indeed been arrested in Mexico, and there were records of substantial debts with known loan sharks in Camden. Dr. Camilla had advised not to share these details with Lily for now. She's at a delicate moment of recovery, the psychologist had explained. Information about Victoria and the circumstances of the abandonment can be disturbing and confusing. When she's emotionally stronger, we can assess how much she needs to know. Upon arriving at the school, he found Lily excited after the rehearsal. She was wearing a headband with paper flowers that she had made in art class. "Dad, I'm going to be a tree in the presentation," she proudly announced when she got into the car. "A tree? Wow, how special! I bet you'll be the most beautiful tree of all," replied Robert, pushing away the dark thoughts from the police station. "The teacher said trees are important because they give life and protection, just like you, right, Dad?" That innocent comparison deeply touched Robert. "I try to be, Princess. I try to be." In the days that followed, he focused even more on strengthening his new routine with Lily. The last session of the woodworking workshop was a great success. The children had built small wooden boxes, sanded and painted by themselves. Lily's was painted bright yellow, with small green flowers drawn on each side. "It's for keeping treasures," she explained when they got home. "What kind of treasures are you going to keep?" asked Robert, curious. Lily ran to her room and came back with a small collection: colourful bottle caps, a shiny button, a little bird feather, a smooth pebble found in the school garden. "These are your special things," commented Robert, observing the seemingly insignificant objects that his daughter carefully arranged in the little box. "Yes, before I kept them in the closet, hidden. Now I can leave them here," she said naturally, placing the box on the bedside table. That casual comment revealed so much. During the days of abandonment, Lily had collected small objects, keeping them as treasures, perhaps as a way to maintain some control in a world that had become unpredictable and frightening. Now she felt safe enough to display them openly. The house had also undergone transformations. After the deep cleaning and necessary repairs, Robert decided it was time to make more significant changes. He hired an architect to completely renovate the interior, creating more welcoming and functional spaces. "I want each room to be rethought," he explained to the professional. "This house needs a new beginning." The living room, previously formal and little used, was transformed into a living space with comfortable sofas and a large table for games and family activities. The kitchen gained a central island where Robert and Lily could prepare meals together. The old office, completely redesigned, now had a work area for Robert and a study and creation space for Lily, separated by a low bookshelf that allowed them to see each other but gave enough privacy for each one. The garden, previously merely decorative, gained a vegetable garden, a treehouse, and an area for picnics. It was there that on a sunny Sunday afternoon, about 3 months after the incident, something happened that Robert considered a true miracle. They were planting sunflower seedlings when a medium-sized dog with golden fur mixed with brown appeared at the gate, timidly wagging its tail. Lily saw it first and was paralyzed for a moment. "Dad, look! It looks like Toby," she whispered, her eyes wide. The dog wasn't Toby, obviously, but there was, in fact, a certain similarity in the coloring of the fur and the shape of the ears. "It must be lost," commented Robert, observing that the animal had no collar. Lily slowly approached the gate. The dog remained where it was, wagging its tail with more enthusiasm. "He looks hungry," said the girl, looking at her father with that expression all children use when they find a stray animal. "Can we give him food?" Robert hesitated. He hadn't planned to have another dog so soon. The loss of Toby was still recent, although Lily rarely talked about it, but seeing the sparkle in his daughter's eyes, something that had gradually reappeared in recent weeks, he didn't have the heart to deny it. "We can give him some water and food, yes, but we don't know if he has an owner, Princess." Lily was already running into the house, returning moments later with a bowl of water. The dog drank eagerly, then sat down, looking at the two with an almost smiling expression. In the days that followed, the dog, which Lily began to call Simba because of the golden mane around his neck, continued to appear at the gate. Robert placed ads in the local newspaper and on social media, looking for the possible owner, but no one came forward to claim him. One morning, after a night of heavy rain, they found Simba huddled under the porch, soaked and shivering. It was Lily who made the decision. "He chose our house, Dad. Can we keep him?" Robert observed the dog, then his daughter's hopeful face. Something in that scene, the abandoned animal finding refuge, the child who had gone through so much suffering offering shelter, seemed laden with meaning. "Let's take him to the vet first, check if he's all right. Then we can decide." The vet confirmed that Simba was healthy, although slightly malnourished. He estimated that he was about 2 years old, probably a mix of Labrador with another breed. He had no microchip or any other identification. "Looks like you've gained a new family member," commented the vet, smiling as he saw how Lily affectionately petted the dog. And so it was. Simba adapted quickly to the house, as if he had always belonged to that place. For Lily, his presence seemed to fill a void that the loss of Toby had left. For Robert, it represented another step in rebuilding a safe and happy home for his daughter. The transformations were not limited to the physical environment. Professionally, Robert found a new balance. The restructuring of the company, initially viewed with skepticism by the partners, ended up bringing unexpected benefits. With Paul taking on more international responsibilities and a new operations director bringing fresh ideas, Mitchell Engineering expanded in directions that Robert, alone, might not have explored. The project in Spain, which had taken him so far from home, ironically ended up being one of the most successful in the company's history. Robert now supervised it remotely, with occasional and short visits when absolutely necessary. On these rare trips, he took Lily with him, transforming work commitments into small family adventures. On one of these trips to Madrid, while watching the sunset from the Santa Lucia viewpoint, Lily asked a question that caught Robert by surprise. "Dad, do you think Aunt Victoria was a bad person?" Robert chose his words carefully. After months of therapy, Lily occasionally mentioned Victoria, but had never asked such a direct question about her. "I think she was a complicated person, who made very wrong choices," he finally replied. "Some people, when they're scared or desperate, make decisions that hurt others, even without really wanting to do harm." Lily reflected on this for a moment, her eyes fixed on the horizon where the sun was plunging into the ocean. "Sometimes I dream about her," she confessed. "In the dream, she's crying and asking for forgiveness." "How do you feel when you wake up from that dream?" Lily shrugged. "A little sad, but then I remember that you're there and I feel better." Robert hugged his daughter, feeling a wave of gratitude for her ability to process such difficult experiences with a wisdom that seemed beyond her years. "You know, Princess, sometimes people enter our lives for a time and then leave. Some leave good memories, others not so much. The important thing is what we learn and how we move forward." "Like we're doing now?" she asked, looking up with those big, insightful eyes. "Exactly like we're doing now." Back in the US, life continued in its new rhythm. The house completely renovated, no longer held visible traces of the dark days of abandonment. The walls had been repainted, the furniture repositioned or replaced, the routines completely recreated. But perhaps the most significant transformation occurred on an ordinary afternoon, about 6 months after the incident. Robert was in the shared office, reviewing some contracts, while Lily drew at her desk. Simba slept peacefully on the rug between the two. "Dad, look what I made," called Lily, holding up a colorful drawing. Robert approached to see. The drawing showed a yellow house with a large green garden. In front of the house, 3 figures, Lily, Robert and Simba. Above the house, a bright sun, and in the corner of the paper, a leafy tree. What caught his attention, however, was what was written on the top of the sheet, in colorful and carefully drawn letters. "Our happy home, where Daddy always stays." "It's beautiful, Lily," he said, feeling a lump in his throat. "I want to hang it on the new wall," she declared, referring to the newly painted wall in the living room, which they had decided to dedicate to family drawings and photos. "Of course, let's hang it right now." While they were looking for the perfect place on the wall, Lily said something that would stay forever in Robert's memory. "Dad, I was really scared during those days alone. But you know what I thought? That you would come back. I knew you would come back and fix everything." Robert knelt to be at eye level with his daughter. "I will always come back to you, Lily. Always. And together, we'll fix anything that needs fixing. Promise." I promise. Engineer's word. He made the solemn gesture that had become a ritual between them. Lily smiled, that luminous smile that had disappeared for so long and that now returned more frequently each day. She took another drawing from her folder and handed it to Robert. This is for you to keep on your desk at work, so you never forget. The drawing showed the two of them again, holding hands, building something that looked like a house. At the bottom, in still childish but firm handwriting, was written, "Daddy and me, building new things together." Robert hugged his daughter, feeling that they had finally reached a safe place after a devastating storm. The scars were still there, in both of them, but now they served as reminders not only of past pain but of the strength they discovered in themselves and in each other. That night, as he watched Lily sleeping peacefully with Simba curled up at the foot of the bed, Robert thought about how life could completely change in an instant. How the things we consider most solid, careers, reputations, material achievements, can prove fragile when compared to the true foundation, the bonds we build with those we love. In his previous life, he had erected impressive buildings, closed millionaire contracts, built an enviable reputation in the business world. But his most important work, he realized now, was there before him. The rebuilding of his daughter's trust, the foundation of a true relationship based on presence and genuine commitment. As an engineer, he had always known that the quality of a construction fundamentally depends on its foundations. Now, as a father, he understood that the same principle applied to human relationships. The foundations he was building with Lily might not be visible to the eyes of the world, wouldn't earn awards or public recognition, but would sustain something infinitely more valuable: a shared life, a rebuilt family, a joint future. And that, he realized with absolute clarity, was the most significant construction he would ever accomplish.